Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is awaiting a decision on his fate after a two-day appeal hearing was held this week, challenging his extradition to the US. Julian Assange could face 17 charges of espionage and one of computer misuse after he published classified US military documents 14 years ago. Assange could be sentenced to up to 175 years in jail if convicted, but his lawyers say the authorities in the US are seeking to punish him for exposing the illegal actions of their own government, including torture and killings. The judges who heard the appeal say it will take time to come to a decision and a verdict is not expected until early March, if not later. So here to discuss this, I'm joined by Deputy Editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers. Thanks for coming on, Fraser.
Thanks for having me.
Now, the Julian Assange case is often not really covered in the media, and partly because it's quite complicated.
Yes.
Do you want to talk us through what's happened here?
Yeah, I mean, so Julian Assange is a very controversial figure. People will have disagreements about his methods, publishing large amounts of classified documents rather than writing stories, writing articles, as many journalists might do. People will also disagree with the way he responded to the rape charges levelled against him from Sweden, when he absconded to the Ecuadorian embassy. But what this case is really about is about press freedom. He is really being punished for publishing things that are true that the US government and various people did not want him to publish. OK,
but this has been embarrassing both for the Republicans and for the Democrats,
yes.
Right? I mean, we had the Hillary Clinton emails, for instance.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The way how you know that this is actually about publishing is because the Obama administration said as much back in 2013. Their Department of Justice said, if we go after Assange, then we have to go after the New York Times, The Guardian, all the other newspapers that published the stories that came from his leaks.
Yes.
The Trump administration took a very different view. Essentially, the head of Trump's head of State Department was also the CIA director previously.
Yes.
And Assange massively embarrassed the CIA with a load of leaks called Vault 7. Now, these revealed all these kind of secret hacking techniques that the CIA were using, how they were able to, for instance, turn your smartphone into a listening device.
Yes.
And then that changed. Suddenly, the US security state flipped. They declared all-out war on Assange. They said that WikiLeaks was no longer a publisher. It's a spying agency, a non-hostile, a non-state hostile actor. But also, they embarrassed the Democrats in 2016 because people might remember the stories about Hillary Clinton's emails. That was actually to do with WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks were able to publish a tranche of emails from John Podesta, who is the chair of the Hillary Clinton campaign, and this revealed all kinds of things about what was going on.
Yes, of course.
Behind the scenes.
But that's the point, isn't it? Part of a journalist's job is to say the things that people in power don't want you to say.
Yeah.
To reveal those things that are in the public interest. Is it not the case that a lot of the things that Assange ended up revealing through these leaks were actually important for us to know?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think they were revealing things like war crimes in Iraq, one of the earliest WikiLeaks stories, it was essentially about a helicopter attack, a helicopter attacking civilians. 2 Reuters journalists died in this attack, and it's on film. There were hundreds and hundreds of thousands of files from the Iraq War, from the Afghanistan War, from various conflicts, revealing lots of dodgy things, torture, extraordinary rendition, all kinds of things that, obviously the US and the West more broadly wanted to keep hidden.
But then what would you make of the argument? I mean, the counter-argument is really, but he put people's lives at risk. He put undercover agents' lives at risk through revealing this stuff. So
this is said quite a lot, but I think it needs to be taken on. It's a bit of a myth. Actually, originally, WikiLeaks did not publish the names of various agents. What happened was there was a security breach later on. WikiLeaks has actually accused The Guardian of being at fault of this. I don't know whether that is the case.
Yes.
And it was never actually WikiLeaks' intention to publish the names. They didn't publish things willy-nilly in the way that they're often accused of or thought of. They did publish large reams of information, classified information, that was, not presented with an editorial slant, you could say, but they did actually redact some things.
Yes.
So I don't think it's fair to, put that on Julian Assange. And actually, no one has come up with any specific cases. There's, Assange's case has been in court time and time again, and yet they haven't actually named anyone who they could say has been killed from.
But a lot of Americans, a lot of politicians in America would say that he's a traitor, that actually their security services need to have secrets in order to operate, in order to deal with this new Cold War that we're going through. I mean, isn't there a point to that?
Well, security services do need to have secrets. I think that's right. I think that, there's a reasonable debate to be had about what do do you do with whistleblowers? But Julian Assange wasn't a whistleblower. So you could say, I don't think it's outrageous to say that Chelsea Manning or Bradley Manning at the time should face some kind of punishment for revealing secrets that were entrusted to him.
Right.
And he went to prison for 7 years for collaborating.
So you think that's
with
reasonable
Assange.
because he had agreed as part of his...
It's actually part of the job is,
Yes.
your job is to keep those things secret. I'm not saying that, maybe the punishment is too harsh or whatever, but I think it's a completely different thing we're talking about.
Yes.
What Assange is being punished for, and this is what is unique about it, this is the first time that spying charges have been levelled against someone for publishing. Journalists publish secrets all the time, but usually it's not, they're not the ones doing the, taking them, they're not doing the hacking or whatever into a system.
OK, but if it were to be discovered that he was involved in the actual hacking part of it, that would change this slightly.
It would change one of the counts, I think, but I don't think it would warrant the sort of 18 charges levelled against him, adding up to 175 years in prison.
And it's a bit of a vendetta, isn't it, from various American politicians, and they are just embarrassed, aren't they? Because they, if we really care about our security services, we want to hold them to the highest standards.
Yes.
Torture and that kind of thing.
It's the kind of thing that we expect not to happen, and he's embarrassed both parties in the US. He's embarrassed politicians in the UK as well. Embarrassed the entire West with many leaks of diplomatic cables. But really, this is about our right to know what is going on as members of the public.
Really interesting in terms. You mentioned the Guardian published a lot of this information as well. But they should be able to do so, right? There are ramifications here for journalists more broadly, aren't there?
Absolutely. I think there will be a huge chilling effect on journalism if this is to go forward. Another factor we have to remember is he is not a US citizen. He didn't commit his alleged crimes in the US. So what kind of precedents does it set that the US can essentially say, well, we want this person who's published something that's embarrassing, and you just send him to us to be in prison. That's very dangerous.
Is it possible for him to get a fair trial?
I don't think so, because there is, such a deep-seated hostility to him in the US. If you think about the CIA, it was revealed, and, at high levels of the Trump administration as well, were openly talking about, when he was still in the Ecuadorian embassy, how can we kidnap him and kill him?
That was open, was it?
This is a known fact that agents discussed and actually ordered different plans and scenarios for how that might be done. So for people to be able to say he will get a fair trial under those circumstances, when we know that the US state has considered assassinating him, I don't think that's
so surely this should affect the High Court's ruling, but we don't know what it's going to be, do we?
We don't know, and I don't think it looks good on our side, to be honest. I think he's been charged only with skipping bail in the UK, and yet he's been put in Belmarsh, which is usually a prison we reserve for terrorists and, serial killers.
Yes.
The High Court once essentially allowed him to delay extradition, but that was purely on the grounds of his ill health. No court in the UK, including the Supreme Court, actually, has ever recognised his defence, his right to free speech, or the importance of press freedom. So I'm actually very pessimistic about where this is going.
Very interesting. We're going to keep some tabs on this one. Fraser Myers, thanks so much for joining us.